Leonardo da Vinci, the man, the mystery, the turning point in history.
Italy was changing during the 14th century. Greek and Roman culture was beginning to fuse together. The largest brick dome in the world, the Florence Cathedral, had been erected. Europe was stricken with the bubonic plague that resulted in the death of hundreds of millions of people in the course of only 2 years. During this time, people started thinking apart from the church and instead looked at making the most of their life on earth. This time gave rise to many influential figures. Machiavelli wrote his political handbook, The Prince, and Shakespeare created master plays. The Borgia and Medicis rivaled over power, and the church turned to corruption and sparked the Reformation movement. Raphael, Michelangelo, and of course, Leonardo da Vinci started to think in unconventional ways. Because of this, the Renaissance was known as the rebirth of the arts and science. At the third hour of the night on April 15, 1452, Leonardo da Vinci was born in the lower valley of the Arno River to a notary and a peasant girl. Leonardo was born in the town of Vinci, Italy, which is now modern-day Tuscany. During his life, he excelled in countless areas of art and science, which included painting, sculpting, engineering, and biology. This man was never fully recognized until hundreds of years after his death. He never knew that his work would change the world.
In our society today, it's a rare person that can do all these things.
Leonardo da Vinci is said to be one of the greatest Renaissance artists of all time. His work can be found in some of the most exclusive and famous museums, such as the Louvre, the National Gallery of London, and the Uffizi of Florence. His paintings have been appraised for millions of dollars. One of the most famous paintings by da Vinci is the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa, or La Gioconda, was painted by da Vinci between 1503 and 1506. At the time of the Mona Lisa being painted, the Renaissance art movement was at its height in Europe. The painting was done when da Vinci was commissioned to paint a portrait of Lisa Gherardini. The Mona Lisa was one of the first portraits to feature aerial perspective, which is a technique of displaying depth in a painting using shades of gray. The Mona Lisa also featured sfumato, which is another painting technique that does not use harsh outlines but uses full strokes to enhance light and color. Da Vinci is known as one of the best users of sfumato in his paintings and helped popularize it during the Renaissance era. Da Vinci's paintings feature a new perspective for the Renaissance era, which is called vanishing point perspective. Vanishing point perspective is a type of linear perspective where lines are meant to converge at a single point in a painting. By using vanishing point perspective, two-dimensional paintings are given the appearances of having 3 dimensions.
He spent a lot of time with the concept of multiple perspectives. Before that, the early discovery of perspective had one focal point, but Leonardo began to move focal points around.
Everything prior to the Renaissance was really representing images, but not thinking of them in a place. And the Renaissance, Da Vinci sort of led the Renaissance.
The Last Supper was painted by da Vinci in 1495 as a mural in the refectory of the convent of Santa Maria delle Grazie in Milan. This painting depicts the Last Supper that was celebrated by Jesus and his disciples, as told in the Gospel of John. Over time, the Last Supper has greatly deteriorated and has been the subject of many restorations. Due to this, the mural is far from its original condition. Many of da Vinci's pieces of artwork have inspired and educated modern artists when creating their pieces of artwork, and creating parodies of da Vinci's famous pieces of artwork as well. Da Vinci has influenced contemporary pop artist Andy Warhol to create a cycle based on the Last Supper. Da Vinci could have had many more pieces of artwork and more success, but he suffered from a severe case of chronic procrastination and ADD. This caused da Vinci to leave many paintings unfinished and later destroyed.
Very little of his work was left. He finished very little, and his famous notebooks were torn up and given away. A lot of it used for scrap. We're still discovering them, and the pieces of it are spread all over the world, so it's been a very gradual influence, I think.
In addition to ADD, da Vinci was dyslexic. This caused him to write notes on sketches from right to left and make many errors. This helped da Vinci become a master of art, however, because he had excellent spatial reasoning. Pablo Picasso, another very famous artist, was also dyslexic.
Leonardo da Vinci, as well as being a renowned painter, was very proficient in the field of anatomy. For many years, the field of anatomy had remained mostly unchanged. In the 16th century, however, a revolution took place which inspired many. It opened the door for deeper inquiry and observation. Leonardo da Vinci was a large part of this revolution, and some would say he was even a forefather in the field. In Leonardo da Vinci's research, he would dissect human bodies, and throughout his life he carried out over 30 dissections at the morgue. These actions were quite unorthodox and frowned upon by many.
And it was absolutely forbidden to have any contact with a dead body or anything like that. They were doing it on the sneak.
The most important aspect of da Vinci's work with anatomy was his drawings. Being a curious man, he did not always make the most accurate depictions of the human body, however he was headed in the right direction. Da Vinci created many extremely detailed drawings, including human hearts, skulls and heads, muscles, limbs, and even a human fetus, believed to be his most important discovery. Although da Vinci believed the human fetus to be analogous to that of plants, it was still an incredible feat in anatomy during that time. Peter Abrams, professor of clinical anatomy at Warwick University in the UK, believes that Leonardo da Vinci was 300 years ahead of his time.
It is not an understatement when saying Da Vinci was one of the most influential artists and biologists, but also a revolutionary thinker, inventor, and engineer. Leonardo da Vinci conceptualized many creations in his life, but very few of these inventions were deemed feasible to actually work during his lifetime.
I hadn't known anything about that until those pages were discovered. And now we're looking in retrospect, and what we're finding out is that a lot of what he was fiddling around with wouldn't work anyhow, but he was on the right track. You know, I think he took chances.
Only after his death were his designs fully appreciated and implemented in technology. Some would say he was the greatest inventor in history. His IQ was estimated to be 220. Plato, Mozart, and Bill Gates all could only surmount to an estimated IQ of 160. His inventions were immensely ahead of his time, more complex and thought-provoking than any other inventor could come to. Some of his numerous inventions include the ball bearing, parachute, ornithopter, machine gun, armored tank, diving suit, and an early depiction of a car. Leonardo's parachute was shaped like a triangle. This was different from the modern-day parachute because it didn't have a hole in the top. A skydiver, Adrian Nicholas, tested Leonardo's design 9,000 feet in the air, and he found that the ride was much smoother than the modern parachute. However, using this design would prove dangerous as the parachute weighed about 200 pounds. As a child, Leonardo was fascinated with the flight of birds and built an ornithopter, one of the first flying machines. His work is compared to Galileo, who mastered astronomy, and Michelangelo, another famous artist of the Renaissance time. Leonardo da Vinci conceptualized weapons of mass destruction, whose potency were not realized at this time period.
One of the things he really wanted to be was a military engineer. I mean, he did invent, I guess, some warring gadgets and machinery that was successful.
He saw underwater warfare, writing in his journals,
"And if it should happen that the engagement was at sea, I have plans for constructing many engines most suitable either for attack or defense, and ships which can resist the fire of all the heaviest cannon, and powder and smoke." As a result of the Renaissance era, people were inspired to express their own ideas, unlike Da Vinci, who had to take great risks to practice his individuality.
In that way, the Renaissance was a way of making two-dimensional images become far deeper, far more compelling, far more engrossing, far more realistic, and having a greater and a deeper voice than other art had previously.
More than 5,000 pages of his notes survive today, as well as 17 paintings, but experts believe that there could still be thousands of pieces of his work in existence.
In his works, he has not only invented but popularized many different techniques in the fields of art and science. He has been a catalyst for the spread of Renaissance ideas and has inspired many artists throughout the last 5 centuries to create fascinating works. Despite the fact he may not have been the only person to think of new techniques, he was certainly the spark that lit the fire, enlightening the minds of the Renaissance.